on this wonderful President's Day. Thanks. Oh, Senator Mitchell, please proceed at your leisure. So thanks for being here today. Appreciate seeing so many people in the audience. And so we'll begin with Senator Mitchell's bill, Senate File 476. We do have a lot of testifiers, so if you think your message has been already stated, we would appreciate brevity, but certainly your passion and your beliefs, we want to hear from them as well. And I'm going to ask that all the testifiers go through their presentation before we get to any questions or comments from the committee. But if you think you have something to say specifically for that testifier, please get my attention and we'll make sure you ask that question at that time. So with that said, Senator Mitchell, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a bill to put forward a model program for climate justice in the schools, which would be a combination of talking about climate in an accurate way and that humans have a role in the climate change that we're seeing. And also the justice part of it, climate impacts have tended to disparately impact poor and minority communities. So some of the ways that climate change is impacting us also has that impact. So being able to talk about both of those issues, making a model program to put in the schools, to be able to kind of have it reported and put the program together and then see and monitor how schools are implementing that, and be able to report back to in accordance with Minnesota statutes. So that's kind of the basic of all of this. So I'm here today to ask that Senate file number 476 is moved.
And we're moving the bill to finance, education finance.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bolden, would you be willing to make that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, so moved.
All those in favor say aye. Oh, not yet.
So may I introduce some of our testifiers?
Please do, and if they could come up at two at a time, if they have a list of when they're testifying, that'd be great to get things going, and make sure you identify yourself for the tape and sign in on a sheet of paper that's up there saying you were here. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And that's what I had asked my, that's why I was over asking my LA if he could get the list so we knew which order they were on your list. Any two can come up.
And you can sign in after you speak if that would speed things up for us. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
And I apologize for the, we're 30 minutes behind schedule because of session today. So thank you for our
Thank you, Chair Swedinsky and members of the committee. Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Poppleton, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Climate Generation, whose mission is to ignite and sustain the ability of educators, youth, and communities to act on systems perpetuating the climate crisis. I've had the honor of supporting the high school youth that wrote and stewarded this bill since its first iteration in 2020. I am a professional climate change educator, proud graduate of St. Paul Public Schools, and mother of 2 St. Paul Central students. This generation will feel the effects of climate change more than any other, so it is critical they have opportunities to study and understand the crisis. We, the adults in positions of decision-making, bear the responsibility of making those opportunities available and accessible for our students. A key part of public education is to equip all students with the knowledge and skills needed to be effective participants in shaping the future. Climate justice education is a necessary requirement to ensure all students have the same learning opportunities, like they do with all currently required subjects. Efforts to build a green economy begin with young people inspired to pursue a new career path. Comprehensive climate justice education is a step towards strengthening the future of Minnesota's green energy economy and it will create trained and passionate candidates for the jobs needed to support and sustain implementation of legislation like the 100% bill that has now been signed into law. Minnesota has always been a national leader on education, but states like New Jersey, Washington, and Maine have all instituted statewide climate change education legislation over the last few years. We have a responsibility to listen to our students, demanding a comprehensive climate justice-based education for their future and for the future of our green workforce. Thank you.
Hello, Chair and Co-Chair. Thank you for inviting me, or having me to speak, sorry. And thank you to the committee. My name is Noelle Stearson. I'm the political manager for Minnesota 350. We are a climate justice organization that has a grassroots movement within the state to try and organize Minnesotans around climate and climate justice. The whole point of education is to give students the critical skills to think about what the future will look like and how they want to shape it once they become leaders in the world. And there is no topic that is more pertinent to shaping the way that we have the future than climate justice. There are a lot of problems that are coming forward within BIPOC, disabled, LGBTQ, and low-income communities throughout the state and the country that come directly from climate. We see it in natural disasters all the time. It's the low-income people who end up losing their homes because they are in places that are more likely to be hit by flooding. It's the people that lose their homes and can't afford to rebuild because they are not of a higher income bracket, and they can't pay for their insurance to maintain their home should they lose it. And flood insurance, for example, is impossible to get for some of them. It's with that in mind that we need to have people that can think critically about the nuances of these issues. We need people that can look at the problems that we're facing directly from climate change and that how it affects people that are low income, BIPOC, LGBTQ, and disabled, and look at the solutions and make sure that they don't hold the disproportionate weight of the burden to switch over to climate policy, climate, transitions, and that they're not the people that are left holding the bag for everybody else when it comes to getting these jobs, when it comes to any jobs that are leaving, like say the Iron Range. We want to make sure that they're replaced with good jobs that will keep people employed. We don't want to make a future for children where they're disproportionately affected and we leave the world worse off and they don't know how to fix it. This bill will help them figure out what they can do to rise to these nuanced and complicated issues and fix the problems that we as the older generation have created. And so with that, I would like to thank you for inviting me to speak, and thank you for your time.
Hello, Chair. My name is Yvonne Mangari, and I'm currently an honors nursing freshman student at the University of Minnesota. And I've worked with the youth environmental activist for about 2 years now under Climate Generation. And I'm so honored to share my journey through climate advocacy and why I support the climate education bill. When I think back to my own educational experiences from elementary school through high school, I don't vividly remember being taught through my classes that we're currently living through a climate crisis. And upon my own discovery, self-teaching, and further advocacy, I was certainly shocked that I too was blind to the issues happening around me. I'm from Apple Valley, Minnesota, and upon moving to the U of M campus, I could literally hear the stories and see the environmental injustices happening to people that live here. I urge you to vote in favor of the climate education bill because teaching current Minnesotan students about our own environment is imperative to their subjective agency in our world. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Patty Bourne. I'm from Hamline University. I'm a faculty member in the School of Education and Leadership, and I also direct our environmental education master's degree, co-direct our undergrad environmental studies program, and I direct our certificate in climate literacy for teachers. Thank you for being here today. For years now, Hamline has already been responding to the increasing demand among teachers who wish to be prepared with accurate knowledge so that they have the comfort and confidence to address issues of climate change and its intersections with environmental, economic, and social justice. And I can tell you there is a strong demand among teachers for these skills. They know that in order for young people to approach the future with a sense of justice, agency, and hope, they need to understand not just the science of climate change, but how it affects them, their peers, and people all across the world. It's the biggest challenge we've ever faced. Teachers want to be prepared with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to equip children and youth to deal with climate change and climate justice and all of the myriad impacts that it has on our future. We need to support our teachers in developing the best, most scientifically accurate information to our students so that we can help our students develop their civic awareness and be prepared to meet the challenges head on. A 2021 study by UNESCO revealed that youth across the world overwhelmingly cite frustration with their lack of knowledge and understanding of climate change, their lack of skills to get involved to affect change, and their lack of awareness about how to get involved in local effort and policy. This presents the state of Minnesota with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We can allow educators across the state to close opportunity gaps for future generations and ensure that we come together to build the strongest education system possible that meets the needs of students in every corner of the state, preparing them to meet the most significant challenge we've ever faced. According to a Yale survey, 70% of Americans support climate change education in schools. We know that American families overwhelmingly support teaching our children about the causes, consequences, and potential solutions to climate change. We know that climate change education is also named as a key factor in the 2020 United States Pathway to Net Zero Carbon Emissions Reduction Plan. Our own federal government recognizes the necessity of preparing young people to meet the future through high-quality climate education. Finally, our young people deserve the opportunities that high-quality climate education brings because it prepares them with the education, skills, and tools they need in order to be informed citizens working together collaboratively to ensure justice for all. Climate-related jobs in the state are expected to grow by about 10% over the next decade, and climate education will provide Minnesota students with the skills and abilities that will be crucial for most of the jobs of the 21st century. They will inevitably intersect with the environment in one way or another. Jobs in fields as diverse as public health, STEM, education, natural sciences, business, economics, political science, finance, communications, and of course the trades. In order to be effective at creating a sustainable future for all Minnesotans, students deserve to understand climate change and the impact it has on communities across the state and the globe. I believe we owe it to today's young people to ensure they are well prepared to meet the challenges of our future with accurate information, a depth and breadth of understanding, and the skills to develop resilient, creative solutions that are just and equitable. And I hope you agree. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Abler,
is it ever wrong to give a shout out for Hamlin at this committee?
you have my wholehearted support.
Thank you.
Shout out to Hamlin.
Thank you. Go ahead. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Michelle Garvey. I'm a professor who teaches environmental justice at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, and I'm supported here by my son, Finn Garvey-Larice, who is a 5th grader at Minneapolis Public Schools, and they have the day off today. What happens when students are repeatedly taught the crisis that is climate change, but not the opportunity that is climate justice? In my capacity as a climate justice instructor at the University of Minnesota for over a decade, I've observed debilitating doomism and anxiety about the future rather than activation toward solutions, the normalization of individualist, greenwash consumer choices instead of the political action needed to accomplish broad, meaningful change, and the misconception that we're all equally to blame rather than the truth that climate has been privatized by a handful of corporate and global north polluters. Last year at the beginning of one class, I invited students to write on the board how they felt when they thought of climate change, and responses included grief, overwhelmed, alone, my fault, angry, terrified. Members of the Senate, my students want to understand the intersecting forces that brought us to this moment. They hunger for a language that explains the reality of how wealth disparity, food access, and mass migrations connect to droughts, hurricanes, wildfires, and species extinctions. Most of all, they desire to channel their fears into productive action that ameliorates injustice and promises a future of abundance for all of us. They need to be taught all of this. We must complement climate science education with responses proportionate to the unprecedented burden placed on their generation. Responses that open opportunities for them to channel their outrage, leverage their passions, engage their communities, and innovate solutions. Senators, I asked students to share their feelings in that class again, although this time after our unit on climate justice was delivered. Their responses included hopeful, determined, solidarity, agency, motivated, inspired, and activated. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Are you testifying?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Make sure you say your name.
My name is Finley Garvey-Larice. Can I say it? Yeah. Climate change, like it makes me mad, and I just want to learn how to deal with it.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Josh Leonard, and I am the Education Director for Bellwin Outdoor Science, part of St. Paul Public Schools. I'm also a dad, and I'm supported today by my kids, Odin and Graydon, who are 2nd and 5th graders, and also their friend Vivian, who's also a 5th grader, and my wife, Steph. It's my job to connect over 10,000 St. Paul Public School students to nature through science every year. 77% of the kids I serve are considered students of color, and 71% qualify for free and reduced lunch. These students will be impacted by the resulting climate injustices more than any other Minnesotans in history. The majority of my urban students are scared to step off the bus into a nature immersion field trip like what they experience at Bellwin. However, after just a 3 or 4 hour field trip, students transform their fears into enthusiasm, saying, "This is the best day ever, and can I come back tomorrow? And can I work here?" Actually, there are 3 of 7 Bellwin instructors first arrived as students on field trips in St. Paul Public Schools. Education really works. So imagine if we could take that and tap that transformative power that kids have and apply it to the climate crisis. Instead of stepping into a changing climate full of fear and despair, we will equip students to address the crisis by finding and implementing solutions, by looking for opportunities in climate change that could make their future businesses thrive. I admit, I am scared of climate change. I'm scared for my kids because my generation and my parents' generation have waited for somebody else to tackle the climate crisis. But I'm also hopeful. I was thinking about what I would say today as I biked home from work last Thursday, and a bald eagle flew right over my head. I realized it took a law to ensure that bald eagle could be there. In fact, I see bald eagles almost every day I'm at work. The law worked. The same is true for complex issues like reducing acid rain and the ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer, rather. So I believe our students' capacity to learn and make changes the future requires, and the Climate Justice Education Program is the critical foundation to enable them to do so. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Emma Mushaka, and I'm here representing Lower Failing Creek Project in support of this bill. We are a Native-led nonprofit engaging people to honor and care for our natural spaces, sacred sites, and the cultural values within them. At the center of our environmental justice organization is the fundamental Dakota principle, Mitakwe Owasin. We are related to all living things. The pursuit of climate justice asks us to look beyond ourselves, from the legacy of American Indian sustainability practices to the future generations that deserve the right to clean air, clean water, wholesome food, safe housing, and sustainable energy. It is fundamental to encourage our abilities to foster the health of our plant and animal relatives who provide us humans life every day. These rights are all at risk without proper climate justice education. We, as an environmental org, are inundated with requests to provide Twin City school districts with climate justice education for their students. Although we seek to educate all Minnesotans on Dakota stewardship and restoration values, the reach of our small nonprofit can only go so far. By implementing a curriculum on climate justice, this vital education would reach a wider audience of students that can move our communities to a sustainable future. So with that, I ask you, please support this SF 476 bill for a stronger Minnesota. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Claire Carroll, and I am also here on behalf of Lower Phelan Creek Project in support of SF 476. As many have stated before me, it is necessary in this conversation to shed light on the fact that climate injustice, pollution, and forced displacement have disproportionate effects on communities already facing systemic barriers. More specifically, Black, Indigenous, people of color, those with disabilities, and low-income communities globally. No matter what an individual's viewpoint is on the science regarding climate change, we cannot deny the existence of climate injustice in our nation. I have witnessed these injustices firsthand against Indigenous people specifically, both in Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota and in northern Minnesota in regards to unjust oil pipeline operations. Many Americans are still unaware of the injustices happening in these places. However, chronic illness caused by pollution, as well as lack of access to clean air and water, is an alarming reality for an increasing number of Americans. If you remain unconvinced about the gravity of climate injustice, I ask that you further examine the public health crisis caused by the recent chemical spill in East Palestine, Ohio, and its direct impact on the individual sovereignty of its residents. While we cannot undo environmental harm that has already been done, Minnesota has the opportunity here and now to teach our students about climate justice and provide them with the knowledge and skills to create a healthier and more sustainable future for all Americans. For these reasons, I am asking for bipartisan support of SF 476. Thank you for your time.
My name is Tom Lucy. I am a social worker in St. Paul Public Schools and a member of the St. Paul Federation of Educators. I'm grateful to be here today and to speak to you all. The threat that we face from climate change is one that touches all areas of our lives and the lives of our children. Because this issue is so wide-ranging, it will take action in all areas of society to effectively combat it. I come here today to share one area where action needs to be taken. The area I come to speak of today is education and how we can fight climate change through it. As I mentioned earlier, our rapidly changing climate is touching all of us in all areas of our society. Therefore, our children need to understand how they can be a part of the solution and to see the problem throughout all areas of their academic career. We need to teach our kids the science of climate change, the science of how to save the future. But it's not that simple. We need to teach our children about climate change through the language arts, through history, through the arts, and every subject that we teach. By doing this, our kids will understand the complexity of the problem and, more importantly, see how they can take action through whatever life path they choose. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Since we now face what is likely the biggest threat mankind has ever faced, it only makes sense that the education of our children be a part of the fight against that threat. I'm hopeful that the Climate Justice Education Bill can be an important step toward the future that we need. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senator Swodzinski and members of the Education Policy Committee. My name is Emma Mohammed, and I'm a senior as well as president of Earth Club at Jefferson High School in Bloomington, Minnesota. 2 weeks ago, I organized a climate cafe chat at my school where I asked over 150 students what they wanted to see environmentally change at Jefferson. The first most common answer was actually learning about climate change in our education curriculum. Education is power, but the first time I learned about climate change wasn't in school. The first time I learned about it was the first time I experienced it. And after experiencing climate change and therefore learning about it, I realized educating others about climate change needed to happen now more than ever. Learning about climate change changed my life, and I know it has the power to change others too. So in 2021, I presented to the staff of my school why climate change deserves to be a part of our curriculum, along with a comprehensive guide with over 60 resources on how they could integrate it into their corresponding classes. I was applauded by the staff for my presentation, but it's now been 2 years later, and still no changes have been made. Changes must be made because students want to learn about climate change. The ED Week Research Center surveyed a sample of 1,055 teenagers in October 2022. 65% of the students responding said they want to learn more about how climate change will affect the future of the Earth and society. When we educate the student population about climate change, it empowers them to develop a strong personal connection to finding climate solutions. We must not pass on the opportunity to educate students to prioritize the current climate crisis. Even if you don't believe in climate change, please believe in your students' voices and pass SF 476.
Good morning, Senator Swadzinski and members of the Education Policy Committee. My name is Rakia Sheikh Osman. I live in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and I am a youth environmental activist at Climate Generation. Since my freshman year, I have been excited to take one of the most popular classes in my school, AP Environmental Science. One of my friends took the class, and when I asked her about it, I was surprised to hear that she had found it to be stressful, but not because of the homework. She was stressed because of the content. She ended up dropping the class because of the distress that it had caused her. According to Harvard Health, 2 out of 3 Americans experience climate anxiety. Often what pulls people out of environmental activism is the way that it is presented, in most cases as a doomsday event, that we are all going to die in the next decade due to environmental degradation, making all of our efforts meaningless. However, this perspective is extremely harmful, and rather than motivating, it often leaves students distraught and hopeless about climate change. The difference in this bill and how climate change is normally taught in schools, if the school is lucky enough to have an environmental class, is that this program would be geared towards climate justice, on solutions to climate change. Focusing on solutions to climate change can empower young people to take action and make positive impacts on the world. When students can learn about solutions to climate change, such as renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and green transportation, these students can see that there are tangible ways that they themselves can make a difference. The SF 476 bill allows for a comprehensive education about climate change based on how youth can involve themselves in climate action and give them hope for the future. This will inspire young people to take action and make positive changes in their own communities. By teaching climate justice in our schools, students can feel more hopeful and optimistic about the future, equipping them with a mindset that will excite and empower young people to take action. As a high school student who sees the potential in all of my classmates every day, I support the passing of the SF 476 bill.
Good afternoon. My name is Manny Vasquez. I use he, him pronouns. I am a senior at Minneapolis South High School. I'm also a member of Youth in Power. We are community organizers looking through the lenses of environmental justice. We're located in North Minneapolis, where the highest percentage of people are affected by climate issues in the state. I'm here in full support of SF number 476, which will bring the knowledge of climate justice to the classroom. This is important to get our youth informed on climate issues and how it can affect its people. It would expose our youth and how climate is interconnected with forms of oppression, and no matter what form this will take, I hope it inspires others to dig deeper into climate and social justice. Great, thank you guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Lloyd, and I'm a senior at Jefferson High School in Bloomington and a youth organizer at Climate Generation. And today, I'm excited to testify in support of the climate justice education bill you are all working on. I grew up hearing of my grandmother's conquests, how she would run around her city in order to save her house from floods, her knack for MacGyvering fans to full speed to beat back heat waves, and her secret herbal remedy to cure coughs caused by the polluted air. Her stories taught me to never underestimate the power of nature. But sitting in my 7th grade biology class, as my teacher talked about the ozone layer and the endangered polar bears, I got something my grandma never got. I learned about climate change for the first time. I realized that it was us that had made nature this way. We had made the oceans rise and the sun become violent. But what hit me the most was we could also change it. For people like me, whose parents and grandparents haven't had the ability to learn about climate change, it can be life-changing. My climate education gave me the knowledge I needed to start addressing the issues I was seeing firsthand in the world. It allowed me to contextualize the polar vortexes and prolonged heat waves I was experiencing. It empowered me to join Climate Generation and start advocating for the people most affected by climate change, people like my grandmother, who now talks about climate change, speaking in the present tense, not the future tense. This bill will focus on empowering the next generation to take action. Centering climate justice, stories like my grandmother's will allow future Minnesotans to understand the disproportionate effects of climate change. It will equip them with the tools to reflect upon the practices that led us this way, giving them the opportunities to create the equitable and sustainable society they deserve. Here, right now, we have a choice to empower the future to solve the issues that will define tomorrow. I know the impact climate justice education has because I lived it. It's the reason why I'm here today advocating for this bill. I also wanted to clarify what this bill would do. This bill would create a model program and would not create required curriculum as the Minnesota School Board Association had stated. Please pass this bill.
Hello, I'm Beth Mercer-Taylor, and I am staff at the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities campus. And I manage a lot of sustainability education programs. I teach about the energy transition, and I support a huge number of amazing student-led projects. You might be wondering, higher education now, what's she doing here today? And I want to tell you about two things. There's an opportunity for Minnesota higher education through this bill, something that me and my students are really excited about. We have a chance in the higher education community to augment and enhance the kind of climate justice education being proposed here today. I also want to share with you some work students did on my campus. They passed a resolution. You may have already heard a bit about this, but it's just so important that student government at the University of Minnesota has taken a leadership role in advocating for climate justice education. So why am I here coming from an environmental institute at the university? I'm really motivated by the partnership I've had a chance to build with teachers like Angela Asuji, who teaches chemistry at Washburn High School and is the past president of the Minnesota Science Teachers Association, as well as her counterparts who I've worked with across the state, teacher friends in Duluth and Mankato and Morris and Crookston. Together, a couple years ago, we applied for a National Science Foundation grant for a project called Empowering Peer Mentoring to employing peer mentoring to empower youth to become 21st century energy leaders. Our idea is to bring college students into high school classrooms as mentors, where they can learn about climate justice together and then come up with their own solutions. We're starting out at the research now, but we believe that this kind of close-in-age mentoring idea, this idea of a pathway that students can be on, will lead more high school students deciding to aim their sights on STEM and energy transition and climate justice jobs, especially women students and students of color who are underrepresented in these fields. It could not be more important with the Inflation Reduction Act now. This climate justice education bill would see more teachers and schools with the capacity to work with our higher education community on climate justice. We would see greater diversity and breadth of experience and perspective from our students about climate justice. We will become better at teaching our more motivated students, and they will build better solutions with our researchers and in our labs and our campus, and all of our projects will become better. So important. The college students themselves are also the ones who've been saying this. Certainly, many of them do come knowledgeable and experienced in climate justice, but over and over they tell me I didn't have enough in my K-12 education. I wish I had known more. They have shared that with me, year after year since 2008. They are deeply disturbed by the fact that often they don't know until they're in college that climate change is happening real and affecting people who are the least contributing to it the most. And they wish they had learned that and been able to orient themselves earlier. The Minnesota Students Association in 2019 passed a resolution for more environmental justice education at the university, but I think what they say applies in the high school, in the school context just as well. So I'd like to quote from their resolution. It was authored by Cy Power, who was the representative in student government on the Sustainability Committee. And quoting from the resolution, whereas changes in environment, though they impact everyone, have a disproportionate effect on communities that are already burdened. Therefore, we, this is Minnesota student government, call on the university administration to increase environmental justice-themed courses across disciplines and colleges, including support for EJ course projects funding, building administrative capacity, providing faculty training in EJ scholarship and methods, and opening faculty lines for EJ scholars in existing relevant departments. Therefore, we call on our college leadership to add a required environmental justice component to existing environmental majors. Therefore, we encourage the university to facilitate engagement with community leaders of local and global environmental justice organizations and institutions to foster more community-engaged learning, expose university students to the issues that impact the community in which they are living, and better prepare students for their futures by building relationships, networks, and skill sets during rather than after college, while also prioritizing equitable contributions and compensation. That's the voice of the students. I'm happy to share that entire resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Chair Swedzinski, Senator Mitchell, and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Jen Fuller, and I'm a policy advocate with the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy. We are a nearly 50-year-old nonprofit organization that uses law and science to protect Minnesota's environment, its natural resources, and the health of its people. I'm here to testify in support of Senate File 476 on climate justice instruction. For the past 15 years, I've taught about sustainability and climate change at public, private, and charter schools in Seattle, Phoenix, and Minneapolis. I know that teachers have a lot on their plate, but I've also taught about environmental justice in K-12 courses from English to biology to geography and math, so I know that we can integrate these concepts into existing standards. It's clear that this man-made problem is impacting under-resourced communities right now in the United States and abroad. Humans are not separate from the environment. We exist within, shape, and are shaped by it. It is imperative to teach others how climate change affects people unevenly with higher impacts in communities of color, on low-income families, and those with disabilities. For example, a recent study showed that red-line districts in Minneapolis were 11 degrees hotter for land surface temperatures than non-red-line districts, putting Black residents at higher risk of heat-related illnesses. Higher temperatures can also worsen conditions like asthma, which are already more prevalent in these communities due to nearby industrial air pollution. These are just a few of the overarching consequences we face. While Minnesota has now passed ambitious climate goals, we need to cultivate the human capital needed to reach them, and this bill would do just that. We know that students go home and tell their families about what they learned in school, expanding the potential reach of this bill. When people ask me what gives me hope for the future, I always say youth organizers. They understand that the human causes and costs of climate change intersect with existing inequities. On a personal note, Chair Swedzinski was my high school government teacher, and my testimony here demonstrates the impact that K-12 education can have on shaping young people's career trajectories. And I urge the committee to vote for this bill. Thank you. Thanks.
Is that everybody? Okay, great. Thank you, Chair.
Senator, I just want to thank you for the I don't know the right word, but
I was trying to keep it moving, sir.
Yes, and I was so impressed. We were very impressed, I'm sure. We got to come up with a good description of that concept of keeping it moving. And so to all the testifiers, I can't thank you all enough for what you just conveyed. Members? Senator Duckworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, if that's okay. Senator Mitchell, as it relates to the kind of instruction that's outlined in this bill, can a district do this right now if they would like it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Duckworth, my understanding is they would be able to, but there isn't, part of the problem is, as someone who's worked in this area of science, not everyone has an expert within their school or community to be putting this together in an accurate way. So I think having a model program for the schools is very important so that they know that they're accurately teaching the science behind this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I may. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Would this model program be mandated in schools throughout the state of Minnesota?
So, Mr. Chair, my understanding is it would be for school districts or charter schools, which typically, to my understanding, means schools within the public realm.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Thank you for that. I have I guess a follow-up question as it relates to lines 2.8 through 2.10. It talks about school programs and says starting in the 2025 to 2026 school year, a school district or charter school must implement a climate justice education program for students in elementary and secondary school. And so is the idea behind this bill or this program that it is their districts are going to be required to modify, change curriculum. Teachers are going to have to change what they're doing in the classroom all across the state in order to implement or include this program or this instruction?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is, yes, they would, much like we make modifications to curriculum, this would be a modification to the curriculum. I will say I already have children in elementary school, and they already, in a very basic way, touch on this. They understand recycling. They have done some kind of earth-based projects, and they're in kindergarten. So I have 2 in kindergarten. So I think kind of adding this into the science programs and some of the things that they're already doing is not a huge stretch. But yes, it would be something that they would be adding into the programs that are already existing in the classroom.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. I would agree. As a student who is getting further and further removed from his experience in public education, unfortunately, I agree. I had some instruction like that as well. My kids get that instruction as well. Certainly learned that being a good steward of the environment, of planet Earth, is a priority, that we should recycle. Learned about renewable energy, wind, solar, and how they're all great things and reduce emissions that can be harmful to the environment. Absolutely see value in that. I think one of the biggest differences between what I just described and what many students are maybe experiencing in the classroom across Minnesota and our country is the idea of tying in economic justice issues as well. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly, bless you, what that means or what that would look like, or I'm sure as many districts might have some questions about what exactly that requirement would look like in terms of them and their teachers having to implement that. And the reason I bring that up is I hope that communities, parents, school districts, those across the state find some consistency with what we're trying to help them accomplish at the state level. And we've had other bills come before us to take things off the plates of teachers, specifically because their plates are so full and because we're expecting so much of our teachers, of districts, of schools, and our kids. And it comes right on the cusp of kids needing a heightened level of attention regarding their ability to succeed academically. Some classroom disruption over the last couple of years has significantly impacted literacy rates and our ability of kids of all walks of life in all areas of the state to succeed. And so while we are attempting to take things off of the plates of our teachers so that they can help our kids catch up and succeed academically, I would imagine they sometimes are a little bit confused when we then decide to bring other things forward and say, well, we're going to take this off your plate, but we also want you to incorporate and make these changes in the midst of trying to help all these students catch up and succeed academically. And I think that should be the priority as we move forward. One last comment, Mr. Chair, and then I'll turn it over. I spent a couple of years on the school board, and it happened to be during the height of the civil unrest and the onset of the pandemic. And the most uniform, consistent feedback I got from parents of all persuasions were to keep politics out of the classroom. Whether or not you agreed or disagreed with a particular issue, it was to please prioritize the academic success of our kids. And I feel that this bill, although very well intended, and I think gets to what is an extremely important issue, in my opinion, begins to blur the line on academic instruction and what could be determined by some to be political activism. And I can tell you have some comments to say about that. And it's not intended to be a criticism. It's intended to share feedback that I've gotten from folks in our community as it relates to our schools and making sure that we are prioritizing certain things in our classroom and ensuring that there are other things that maybe aren't necessarily finding their way into the classroom. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So first of all, I would like to say, thank you for allowing everyone to testify today. I just talked to some of the groups and said that we were going to be doing this today. All these people signed up themselves. And it was educators and it's students, and there is a thirst clearly for this information. So from the teachers that I have spoken to, and even teachers that found out about this and reached out to me, they're excited to add this, one, because they want their students to get an accurate information and accurate education, but two, because how great is it when you have a subject that the students are thirsting for information on, and you're able to add that into the curriculum. I've taught things before as a guest, and it's so much more enjoyable when people are actually engaged in the subject that you're teaching. So one, I think this adds value. Two, in terms of this being political, if we still have some flat earthers out there, honestly. So if any time there was a minutia of dissent on any topic, we couldn't teach it, we couldn't teach anything because there's dissent on almost any subject out there. Climate change, if you talk to actual scientists, actual climatologists, and the fact that humans are accelerating what is going on is as close as you're going to get to scientific consensus out there on any topic. So if we take the politics out of it, this is actually accurate scientific education. And as one person that testified pointed out, accurately teaching our children science and getting them involved in STEM benefits our entire society. We want well-educated students who understand science properly, not just for themselves, but to be competitive with where the rest of the world is at. So I don't think we're doing anything to teachers other than curriculum changes that, we often do adjustments, and this just adds in that ability to accurately present the science.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wholeheartedly echo the comments made by Senator Duckworth. I do want to, on a positive note, thank you, Senator Mitchell, for Subdivision 3 regarding the parental review of the curriculum. I appreciate you putting that in there. This is a lot to me. I would like to highlight some of the concerns noted by the Minnesota School Board Association and their concerns regarding local control and high school coursework, as far as every time you add something to curriculum, you're putting more and more on the plate. You're taking away elective choices. And if this is so popular, then I would recommend that maybe this be offered as a model for schools to use for an extra curricular or for an elective type course, and then it'll be the most popular course that they have at that school as far as an elective. But then it does address the School Board Association's concerns regarding local control and regarding the amount of high school coursework already on the books. I also believe that this bill is a little bit putting the cart before the horse, because how are our students, before we address literacy, going to even be able to comprehend and read this new curriculum that we're putting on these school districts? You know, if a schedule is a reflection of values, I believe that literacy should be the #1 thing on our schedule in this committee. And until we have addressed this crisis in literacy in the state, I think that this conversation is a little premature. And I think we should bring it back after we've made sure our students can read in the state of Minnesota. So that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So as a fellow scientist, I know we need to, when we're using accurate terms like this is accurate science, and in science you have to allow opposing viewpoints to be proven true or false. Now we can't 100% say that what we're doing is for sure increasing climate change on Earth. Now, you can call me crazy for saying that and whatever, but you can go back and talk. So let me ask you a question. Are we going to be teaching geology in this course?
Senator Wiesenberg, is that a question for the author?
No, this is climate justice.
Okay, so we need to understand geology to understand climate. I know there's people out there laughing at me in the crowd, but I do have a degree in wildlife biology, and I have gone to college, and I have had classes with actual scientists and actual geologists and actual climatologists that have a differing viewpoint. Now, do I think we need to be burning tires and all this? No, we need to work on a better future, but we need to use actual science, and you can't just say this is actual science because you believe it's actual science. You have to prove this. Science is something you can prove. You can't just say, I think this is science and make me believe it. So, and I'm gonna give an example. I had a mammalogy professor. He had a PhD degree. He had a PhD in biology. He taught me a mammalogy class, but he didn't know the difference between an antler and a horn. There's an antler and a horn. We know that. It's very easy to know what that is. Now, when we have climatologists and scientists that are debating the difference in, is climate change caused by man or is it part of a geologic thing? That's way out there between an antler and a horn. So we need, I do believe we need to work on not hurting our climate and hurting our earth, but we can't call climate justice and social justice, and like Zach Duckworth said, we're using these terms and making everybody think the world's gonna end. It's not. I was looking up some data when we were talking, you know, sea levels, here's some geologic data. 14,000 years ago, the Earth, the sea levels were rising 3 inches per year. That's 60 feet in like 1,500 years. We need to be teaching these things to kids. The numbers might not be right, but it's 3 inches per year. There's still some scientists that say we're still slowly coming out of the last ice age. You talk to geologists that are talking about the Earth up level rising. Now, I became a biologist because I've spent my whole life outside and in nature, and I want to preserve the environment, but I want to make sure we're doing it and not just hearing one side and not both sides. And that's what we need to do. And I'm gonna, there's a lot more I could say, but I'm gonna leave you with one thing. Now, I know Barack Obama pushed climate change and all this stuff. Well, why did he buy a house at ocean level in 2019 if he thought the oceans were gonna flood his house? Thank you.
Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. I just want to talk a little bit about literacy and the word literacy. Literacy just doesn't mean that you can read. Literacy means that you can write, that you can speak, that you can listen, and that you can communicate. That's what literacy is. And as a teacher for all those years, if I know one thing about little kids, they love science. They love to learn about the earth. They love to learn about the animals. And these are kids that are, when you talk about them, they're caring and they're nurturing, and there's no better time to start when they're very young. And there's plenty of ways to integrate literacy into these programs. And so I think I just wish that when we talk about literacy, it's not just the ability to read, but also taking into consideration there's much to be part of to be a literate person. And certainly it is the ability to discern information and communicate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Before I call on Senator Duckworth, any members want to weigh in or share their thoughts or that haven't said anything yet? Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. And I appreciate what you had to say, Senator Mitchell. I really do. If you notice, my commentary was not meant to debate you on climate change whatsoever. Matter of fact, I agreed with many of the things that are being taught as it pertains to the environment of our planet and how we need to be mindful of it and do what we can to safeguard and protect it. I certainly didn't subscribe to the flat earth philosophy. My comments were more, that was a joke. That was a joke. No worries there. My comments more had to do with what we're requiring of our schools to do as they try to do what we expect them to do every day, and then aspects of teaching that have to do with what's described in this bill as climate justice, which on line 2.1 says something to the effect of climate change's disproportionate effects on communities facing systemic oppression. And that very well may be a worthy thing to look at and address, and probably very well suited for higher education, where I received some of that instruction. But I think what some of the conversation here has demonstrated is why in our public schools at the K-12 level, beginning to go down the line of what are political issues or topics can sometimes be counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve collectively. My guess is there's a decent amount of agreement on this committee and in this room that putting the well-being of our environment at the forefront of what we're trying to do and accomplish should be a priority for the state of Minnesota and for our country. What does become a potential point of contention and where we begin to see polarization, the divide, is when we add aspects of some of a political agenda that may or may not be described in some of the additional language of this bill. That's all I'm trying to communicate. A worthwhile endeavor. Let's do right by our environment. Let's be good stewards of our planet. And also, let's allow our kids to receive the instruction they need in the classroom that has less to do with what could be considered activism and more to do with their academic success and being a very, very great upholding their civic duty as it relates to our environment and our planet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Abler.
Well, thanks, and I promised the chair I'd be short. Anyway, I wanted to particularly commend all the testifiers who came, students, and especially the Hamlin professor, Mr. Chair. That was like, it just
was the highlight of my day, Senator.
That's really amazing. And I hope you appreciate the discussion, especially the public who has come. I've got 44 years in chiropractic, and in healthcare, the knowledge is always evolving. We always learn something new, and robust, sincere debate brings out the best of everything. And so I encourage you all to keep listening to all sides, create the research, do the best you can do. But I mostly wanted to just commend you all for coming, especially the young man. The place belongs to you, and that's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
So, yeah, un poquito. Thank you, Senator Mitchell. I have a few brief remarks, and I just want to, as Senator Abler just said, we love hearing from students and young people, and I heard a lot of people today use the word empower our young people, empower our young people. wide variety of speakers use that phrase. And it reminded me of my last few years teaching. The lights shut off when there was no motion in the room after like 4 minutes. And I would just leave my classroom with the last student walking out the door. We'd walk out together, and I wouldn't shut off the lights because, hey, they're just going to shut off in a few minutes anyways, right? And they would invariably walk over to the light switch and shut off the lights because we empowered them. And people like me, stuck in the age that I am, didn't bother shutting off those lights because they just shut off in a few minutes anyways. I'm grateful for all those teachers and parents and friends that empowered those kids to shut off those lights, even though they're going to shut off anyways in a couple minutes. I just want to remind everybody that what I love about this bill, you're not mandating a course. You're not mandating that school districts set aside 9 weeks. You're mandating the word program. And that I think is optimal because it does have local control. And so if a local school district wants to create a program that's 2 days in a 12th grade science curriculum or a week-long course in 7th grade science, they have that option. And I do like the line in here as well on line 120 that it must be modeled or grounded by science. However, grounded by science. It's in the bill. So again, my favorite line by one of the students today, they said, or somebody said, give students the skills to critically analyze, and they'll just figure it out themselves. As a government teacher of 33 years, that's what I tried to do myself, is just instill my students to be able to think. They are smart enough to figure out what their politics are. I'm not trying to make them Democrats or Republicans. I just want them to critically think. And that's what we're asking the 100% of the students, is to start critically thinking about science. And they can decide if they want to believe in climate change or not, but let's give them the tools needed to make those decisions. And so I heard a lot of words like hopeful and determined. Whoever gave that list of about 8 things, I couldn't keep up with you, but I loved that, because that's what education's supposed to do, is make kids hopeful. I don't want to be part of a curriculum that makes kids less hopeful or less determined or less empowered. Senator Duckworth, I love it when you say things like take things off teachers' plates, because we can't keep putting things on their plates without taking things off. I'd be more than willing to listen to anybody with some ideas on how we can take things off teachers' plates, but I don't think this is one of those things that we should be taking off their plates. It's the right thing to do, and the students here today are a testimonial to that. So with that said, do I let people speak after my little soliloquy? I'm not sure. The power of the chair. Senator Hochschild.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my sincere apologies. I stepped away as you were ending there, so I appreciate you giving me an exception. I want to thank Senator Mitchell for bringing this bill forward. I believe in climate change, and I'm really inspired by all the young people and all the people here that spoke about the importance of this issue. I wasn't a great high school student, but I was equally inspired by public service and advocacy. And that's really when I started becoming better at academics and finding my true purpose. And I think that's really a lot of what we're talking about here today, which is kids are inspired to make a difference and save our planet. And so I just want to say thank you. With that, I do, in my district, being one of the most rural parts of the state, do have concerns about the difference between curriculum and standards, and what we're giving our local school districts in terms of what they must teach instead of what standards they must meet. And so it's something that I would like to continue to look at as we consider bills in the Education Policy Committee. And I'll look forward to having a conversation with Senator Mitchell about sort of some of those ideas and how we go about the best way of ensuring that our students have these opportunities in front of them. So with that, Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you. Closing remarks, Senator.
Again, thank you for letting me present this here today. You know, when I was campaigning this summer, one of the parents was almost crying, and she thought maybe we'd messed it up for our kids. And I don't want to think that we've done that. I want to be like the students behind me, where there's hope and we accurately learn about things. It makes me sad to hear that some of them never learned about, accurately learned about science in high school, especially when it was something important that was going to impact their future. And so I just think this is a great opportunity to be accurately teaching science to the students, but also giving them that hope that we could actively be doing something to change the world around us. So thank you for the opportunity here today.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bolden, do you care to redo your motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move that Senate File 476 be passed and re-referred to Education Finance Committee.
So moved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Senator. Senator Putnam? Is Jen still in the audience by chance? My former student? No? Okay.
You don't have to leave. It's going to be cool too.
Yeah, tell her to stick around next time. Senator Putnam? Whenever you're ready, and make sure your testifier identifies herself and enters the log on the public record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just might wait for everybody to leave first.
Yeah, that's, I don't know how to interpret that, Senator, but it's not good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Education Policy Committee. It's an honor to be in front of you today to talk about something that's incredibly important and hopefully a lot more efficient and quick than your prior conversation. Everybody loves children, and everybody here around this table knows how important early childhood education is. I don't need to go through all the research for you because I'm sure you're pretty much aware about the amount of brain development and socialization that occurs in those first couple years of a child's life. But those of you who have children might also recall how difficult that is to navigate as a parent. We don't all have degrees in early childhood education, in brain development, and the things that you're supposed to do with your kids when they're young. What we have with our kids when they're young is sleep deprivation. That's what we have when our kids are small. I ask you to think back to when your kids were small, how tired you were, how isolated you occasionally felt, because that's exactly how I felt. I remember not feeling like I was parenting right, not feeling like I had a community with me to raise my child. I found that in early childhood family education, the ECFE program, that many of you, I bet, have participated in. I found not only knowledge about childhood development, I found friends who helped me raise my children. We all know how important ECFE is, and this is our opportunity to support it. Now, early childhood family education has existed in Minnesota for already 45 years, and it's available in all 327 school districts and all 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. All this bill does, it's very simple, is it appropriates funds for 2 Minnesota Department of Education staff positions to support early childhood family education work throughout the state. Now, what these 2 positions will do is they'll provide professional development and education support for those teachers. It'll facilitate collaborations with public and private organizations that serve families, which we know is incredibly important. We can't put the entire burden of raising children and being a parent just on our schools. We need help from a whole community, and private industry is an important part of that practice. But it also assists with marketing and research. Now, Mr. Chair and members, I think you got this one-pager. When I looked at this, I was a little shocked. It says in the St. Cloud School District, 20% of the students who are enrolled in ECFE are on free reduced lunch. Members, my district, over 70% of the kids are on free reduced lunch, but only 20% of those kids in that need are going to ECFE. Clearly, outreach is an incredibly pressing concern that is not yet being met by our current allocations of resources to the ECFE program. So members, I brought my friend Sarah here. She's an ECFE teacher. She can tell us a little bit more about the program that you are all probably very familiar with, and she can help us answer your questions about how these resources will be used.
Thank you, Chair Zwazinski and committee members. And thank you, Senator Putnam, for having me here today. To speak on behalf of Senate File 1240, my name is Sarah McKeever, and I am a licensed parent educator of 15 years in early childhood family education, or ECFE as you fondly know it, in St. Cloud Area School District. And I'm honored to speak on behalf of my family education colleagues across the great state and those who are here today. I know that you value ECFE and the relationship-based work that has been done for nearly 5 decades. As active community members, many of you, like Senator Putnam here, have been in ECFE classes with your own children, and you know firsthand the power of parents and caregivers coming together in a supportive environment to learn and grow together. I know that as the Education Finance Committee, you are apprised of the research and the economic wisdom of investing in early childhood services. As a universal access program, ECFE is a referral source for pediatricians, county home visit nurses, early childhood screeners, child care providers, and grandparents who attended ECFE with their own children. For nearly 50 years, this program has been providing support for young families. And as licensed teachers, we're helping parents to grow their children from birth all the way to kindergarten entry in personalized and meaningful ways. My own ECFE experience began by attending ECFE as a young child, and then as a parent in a program with my own 2 children, and now as a parent educator, having served in 2 central Minnesota school districts. And I have seen a lot of change in the early childhood system over that time. And I've worked for half a dozen administrators. Each administrator comes with different strengths and varying amounts of background in family education. And leading a successful ECFE program requires a specific set of skills and knowledge. In order to fully leverage the power of ECFE in Minnesota, we need more state-level support for our administrators and ECFE staff. Before 2003, there were 2 full-time, experienced individuals solely dedicated to supporting ECFE coordinators and staff across all 300+ school districts in the state of Minnesota. Since the Department of Children, Families, and Learning was eliminated 20 years ago, state support for ECFE has been severely limited. This is why teachers and administrators came together to form MNAFE, the organization I'm representing today. We all volunteer our own time and money in an attempt to fill some of the gaps left at the state level. We are coming to you today to request the restoration of these 2 state-level positions. These leaders will provide relevant support and training to all Minnesota ECFE teachers and program directors. They will initiate statewide marketing and outreach to families. They'll communicate regularly with district leaders. They'll collaborate with other state agencies that serve families, and they'll generally do overall strategic work that will position ECFE to serve families well for another 50 years. We can give all families the support they want to be the best parents they can be and give children the great start they deserve. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Members? Senator Bolden?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I just want to thank you, Senator Putnam, for bringing this bill. This, ECFE programming across the state is undeniably beneficial. So I am a mom of 3. I did not take part in this program because I didn't know about it. I so wish that I had because I could have used it. As I talk to folks in my community, parents in my community who have who are using the services, who are taking part of it, the stories are really powerful. They stick with me. And just hearing how beneficial it is and how it has changed their lives and changed the way they parent their kids. As you know, as we all know, kids don't come with an instruction manual, and we aren't just born knowing what to do. And you know, some of us haven't, didn't grow up in families where we want to model what we experienced. And so, this is just thank you. This is a fantastic program that really changes lives, and we know the benefits of making investments in those early years. Makes differences for generations and decades to come. And so this is really important. So thank you for bringing this bill forward.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. One of the most beloved programs in the state of Minnesota, especially as it relates to our public schools. Senator Putnam, your words, they cut me deep this morning. I've been up since 4 o'clock because my little guy, who is 1, he just would not go back to sleep. So when you talk about this being sleep deprived, I hear you. I'm still living those days, and I love it. They make the days amazing. There are 4 letters that get thrown around with a lot of joy and excitement back home, and that's ECFE. For all the parents and young families that participate in the program, and their kids that do, and the kids that just love the program. So I'm right there with you. I just have 2 simple questions. Did I hear you correctly in that these were roles or 2 people that existed in the past that at some point were eliminated? And that's the first question. And the second question is, does MDE not support ECFE programs already? Are they not helping districts in terms of these programs? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Senator Duckworth. Yes, MDE does support ECFE to the tune of 1/4 of one person's position, so we're definitely not that person's main focus. And he does his best to field questions, and we love Mike Brown and want to keep him around. We'd love to have all of him and another one of him. And frankly, the 2 positions existing in a different department that was completely eliminated, that left no leadership, and MDE has allocated some leadership. And as we know, commissioners come and go as well, and this would permanently put 2 positions into statute.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Putnam, I'd say it gave me some bad flashbacks if bringing the twins home wasn't completely blacked out in my mind. My question is regarding the funding. Is any of that specifically for marketing? Because when I brought my kids home, I didn't know about this.
Senator Coleman, thanks for the question. Mr. Chair, Senator Coleman, thank you for the question. I don't think it's explicitly articulated that, but it is a responsibility of the position. So I don't think that there's a portion of the money that has to go towards that purpose, but it is part of the job description. Is that right, Sarah?
Correct, yes. We're working with the Department of Education to craft a job description that would eventually be filled by these 2 positions, and marketing is a part of it. We want servant leaders to assess the needs across the state and be able to be agile and use those funds as serves the ECFE community best.
Senator Abler.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that news about the 1/4% or half, whatever that 1/4%. Because Mr. Chair, my mind wandered and I kind of missed a part of that. So I was going to ask the question, but I don't have to, so I won't have to be embarrassed by saying I wasn't paying attention, but I was trying so hard. They didn't have ADD when I was growing up, so I sat in the front. It worked out pretty well. Anyway, so Anoka, the largest district in Minnesota, Mr. Chair, has a very strong ECFE program, and I'll ask them just what they wish they could have for more leadership. Is this in the governor's budget?
Honestly, Senator Abler, I don't know.
All right. Well, so anyway, my point was, I'll gamble it's not. And so I hope that this committee and the one led by this amazing person next to me will feel the independence to craft like the most amazing budget for this topic and other areas, because the governor proposes, we dispose, and sometimes little nuances we actually deal with in the day-to-day make a lot of sense. So good luck. Thank you.
And the governor's gods have spoken that it is not in the budget. Accurate. Senator Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Putnam. I just wanted to uplift ECFE as a program as a whole. It's magical. I have 3 kids who are wonderful and quirky, and we would go to ECFE and say, my kid did this really weird thing today, and somebody else would say, mine too. And so the program really is not only incredible for kids and in that period that you talked about where that brain development is happening, but it's so incredible for parents too who are learning how to deal with these little things that don't come with instructions, right? So really anything we can to promote this program and to get as many people involved as we possibly can, I think would be a huge benefit to our state as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. One of the most interesting, insightful hearings I've had this session was in Senator Kunish's committee when she had basically 2 hours of scientists testifying over the importance of those first 3 years and us needing to spend more energy in helping kids reach their full potential before they get to kindergarten. So any final comments on your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for this conversation and sharing your own experiences. Just in closing, I kind of want to bring together Senator Duckworth's comments with Senator Mann's comments, and that there's something beautiful and powerful about being sleep deprived and seeing it in the eye of the person who's there with you at ECFE too, and you don't need to say a word. But there's also something, my kids are 17 and 19 right now. There's also something incredibly beautiful about going to a high school football game and seeing a kid that you saw when they were 6 months old play football and look across and see that parent and remember that time of sleep deprivation, that time that you built this community around raising your kids together, that you shared the struggles and you shared the strengths and you helped everybody's kids grow. I'm really glad to hear the level of enthusiasm around this program, not just the viability of this bill, because it means your kids are in pretty good shape.
Senator Mann, would you recommend this motion to pass and re-refer to the Education Finance Committee?
I would recommend that.
So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Bill passes. And I hope we have enough time, Senator. We'll make it happen. Senator Westlin, Senate File 1401. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. First of all, ECFE, so my son is here with me today, and we were in ECFE many, many, many years ago and have lifelong friends. It's wonderful, so it was fun to listen to that bill this afternoon while I waited to present. So I am here today to present Senate File 1401, and I would like to say that this actually came to me from a student in my district who is a junior at Wayzata High School. She is co-leading this effort to bring some robust service learning opportunities with some other students, and her grandmother is actually here to testify. Unfortunately, Sage Hartman, who's the student from my district, is otherwise occupied at a conference today, so she's not able to be here, but it's always amazing to me when students are interested and active and become activists, lobbying their legislators to bring forward bills on their behalf. So in essence, we already do have a section 124D.50, which deals with service learning, and this bill would actually do a couple of things. It does create a service learning specialist position in MDE, and they would work to administer what we're calling innovative service learning grants. These grants would be made available to schools that meet certain criteria. They would be partnerships between the school and a community-based organization, a governmental agency, or political subdivision such as the city or county. They do have to align with at least one academic standard. And again, the This provides kids the opportunity to do some hands-on learning, but also gives them the opportunity to be engaged in their community in some way, both of which I think are really admirable goals. This will be going to education finance, as it seems all things do. So we'll have the opportunity to hear it there as well. In essence, there are two parts of the appropriation. One piece is for the service learning specialist, and that's $600,000 for the next biennium, so $300,000 a year. And then the service learning grants, which would be distributed equitably throughout the state, would be $1 million per year for the next biennium. Now, I actually would love to hear from Sage's grandmother, Paula Bugan, who is also on Zoom, and let her talk a little bit more about this, because she is also, this has been near and dear to her heart, and would love to hear her talk about this, this proposal, and also maybe brag about her granddaughter a little bit.
Thank you. Am I on?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Paula Bugan, Chair Swadzinski, committee members. My name is Paula Bugan. I am the founder of a network of leaders called Reinvigorating the Conversation, Volunteerism, Service Learning, and Community Engagement. Relevant here is that during an earlier period of my life, I served 3 terms, nearly a decade, on the Robbinsdale Area Schools Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in Senate File 1401 Service Learning. Senate File 1401 is our opportunity to create a brighter, more hopeful future together with Minnesota students. The bill emphasizes that our children and youth learn so much about their world and what they need to know academically when they learn by doing and have a voice in how to go about it. With passage, it demonstrates how valuable students are as contributors to their communities, and it will transform the lives of many. The partnerships that are part of the bill will help students build relationships and social capital. Those who are getting ready for post-secondary education or employment are likely to have a network, role models, and recommendations to help them achieve their goals. Through passage of this bill, we will discover, advance, and spread high-quality service learning aligned with Minnesota's world's best workforce goals, or the plans submitted and approved under the most recent reauthorization of ESEA and state or local academic standards. Students will experience a sense of real-world accomplishment. We need to draw out and build upon the strengths and passions of all of our students and attract more students to stay engaged in school. Here's a Minnesota example of how service learning helped to set a person's life course. This is an example from a Minnesota nonprofit. A high school student participated in service learning at a nonprofit that serves people with disabilities. The student graduated from high school, went to college, became a summer employee there, and later, while working at a corporation, she brought employees to serve at the nonprofit, and she has helped the nonprofit look for employment for people with disabilities. The experience was mutually beneficial experience. According to a 2008 Engage for Success Civic Enterprises key finding, 83% of all students, 90% of African Americans, 83% of Hispanics said they'd enroll or probably enroll in service learning if their school offered it. Student quotes, "Service learning makes me want," quote, "makes me want to come to school because it's not the same school is all the time." Quote, a new quote, "Sometimes students need something more hands-on than sitting in a classroom. They find out what their strengths are." And of course, this is also about purpose. Your support can make a difference in the lives of many. Thank you.
Thank you. Members? Senator Duckworth.
Quick ones, I promise. Senator Westlin, thanks for bringing the bill forward. I think the way the bill reads, this is an optional thing that school districts can participate in. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, is it's a grant-based program.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then a follow-up, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. When I look at lines 2.4, 2.5, it talks about eligible service learning partnership, means a partnership that includes an eligible school and at least one community-based organization, community education program, a couple other things. I'm just curious, would religious institutions, for example, like a church, be eligible to participate in a program like this along with the school?
That is a good question, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bugan, I don't know if you have something to offer on that.
That question has not come up, so I hesitate to comment without further.
I don't know that the bill specifically excludes that. I think if it is a community-based, like if the project or the service learning they're doing is community-based, maybe more than religious instruction, for instance, it seems like they would just go through the application process, and as long as it met the criteria and it met the academic standard, I don't know that it would specifically be excluded, but I guess I don't know the answer to that. Maybe some of our nonpartisan staff would have any input on that, or not.
While they consider that, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Lewis?
Okay.
Madam Chair, members, the language as drafted does not exclude that sort of relationship. So I'd imagine just would depend upon what sort of program that organization has.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Senator Abler?
Mr. Chair, I promise I won't bring up Anoka or Hamlin.
I was waiting.
No, it's not always appropriate. We just have to mind ourselves a little bit about some of those places, no matter how proud we are. Anyway, so I was trying to figure out what this even was when I was looking over the bills over the weekend. And I think there's some real possibilities in that. I think that helping young people get out beyond themselves and to touch bases with somebody who's maybe 3 times as old as them or 4, needing some help, and even some of the employment opportunities that they may not think of or jobs they might actually want to pursue would lend themselves to this. So I hope you can, I would gamble it's not in the governor's bill, but there's some ideas that the governor has not thought of that are really good ideas, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair. So good luck. Thanks.
Senator Swedzinski and Senator Abler, here's how I understand this works. We come up with our thing, they come up with their thing, and somehow it all works out in the end. But it seems like this is it's a small investment. It provides kids the opportunity to make connections, as you mentioned, with adults in their community, service learning that could be really a lifelong opportunity for them.
I just want to thank the testifier for using the word purpose, helping kids find their purpose. That's a pretty powerful statement, and if we can help with this bill, helping 1 or 2 or 3 kids find their purpose, that's great.
Well,
Do you have any final words?
Mr. Chair, I would just say on that point, when I was a senior in high school, this is a little off topic, but when I was a senior in high school, we were all encouraged to attend our precinct caucuses of whichever party we chose to participate with, and here I am. So you never know.
Senator Hoschild, would you recommend we vote on this and we refer it to Education Finance Committee?
Mr. Chair, I will.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. That's for you to remind you. Yeah.